once again.
Well, you're the main person being interviewed.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Alrighty.
We still have 0 viewers, but
I can't hear anything.
Can you hear anything?
Well, this, I need him to hit record.
Okay.
That's why I want the radio.
you two look so cute.
The radio is hooked up to this computer.
Yeah.
So
You have to get a swivel chair built for two.
They do. And one, you know how they share.
You have the wired headphones.
You want to hook it to the thing? You want to hook it to the speaker system?
Yes, I want
But then
this
won't wanna get-
computer hooked up to the speaker system because the speaker system is hooked to this.
Ah, you're making me confused now. Well, would that work, or would it be? Maybe it cause feedback, though. I don't know.
Feedback can sometimes be an issue,
I don't
yes.
think he's broadcasting live yet.
So she wants to know if you're broadcasting live.
I see a live
Yep.
thing.
He says you're
Again,
live.
we have
so
no
she should be
viewers
live.
yet.
Live broadcasting.
Okay.
Go ahead and start. Just start with him.
Maybe some
Can you hear
coffee?
me?
No.
Want me to start? What? Are we ready? Are you guys okay? Cindy, is everything all right?
She wants to know if everything's all right. She can't hear you.
Oh, this is going to be a great show, guys.
Oh, man.
I know. He says it's not playing. Huh.
What's not
So-
playing? It says,
Is Cindy
says
trying to
live.
listen to the live broadcast and then take her cues from that?
I,
He's not playing live. So
I think so. I think that's what
Okay.
she's doing.
All
She
right.
could have,
She says
she
just
could have some
start it. She
bandwidth
can't.
issues at that point.
if it goes live, I'll try to listen to it.
All right. All right.
Is everybody okay?
Yeah. Yeah. We're
good.
good.
We're good. All right. So, gosh, what are we doing? Let me think. Okay. Got me all confused off target here. All right. So I'll start the show. I am just going to take the recording, as I did before, right off of the video that goes to my YouTube channel. So, because it comes out really well. It comes out good. All right. Let me start out.
Okay.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the pixeLobby podcast. I am your host, Brian Mundy, and I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in, subscribing. We will be on iTunes very, very soon, and that should make life for everybody very easy to just, go to iTunes, search for the pixeLobby podcast, click on the button to subscribe, and every time we put out a new show, it'll automatically be notified and downloaded to your smartphone, tablet, your computer, wherever it is you listen to the show. So thank you very much. Today, I have my co-host and founder of the pixeLobby podcast, Cindy Wilkerson. Hello, Cindy. Can you hear us?
He's asking if you can hear you.
She's-
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, she can. It's going to be a good show. And we also have the amazing, incredible, fantastic, talented Ed Ward with us as well. Ed, how you doing?
I'm great. I could have sworn that was going to be Nathan's introduction, though.
No, that's you. That's you. And today's interview, we're going to have the man behind the woman, the woman, the man in front of the woman behind the man, however you say that. But we're going to have Natnan Wilkerson joining us today on the pixeLobby podcast as we talk to him about his work that he does as far as his engineering and design work, as well as his native and tribal artwork that he creates. Nathan, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate that very much. So, first off, we need to kind of give our listening audience a little bit of history and background about the artwork that you do. including, you're also in a creative field as your, quote, day job. So let us know a little bit about yourself and kind of that history of your creative endeavors.
Well, so originally I went to school as an engineer, but even before that, I started doing the artwork actually when I was young, like about 11 years old. So I had lessons with a famous artist. Her name was Frida Deasing. She's since passed away, but yeah, basically from about the age 11 to 13, I was doing private lessons with her, and that's how I kind of got my start in the art world. And then I kind of left it after that. I just kind of, teenagers, we're more worried about goofing around and doing whatever it is teenagers do. You know how that goes. But anyways, so I went to school at Brigham Young University for engineering, mechanical engineering actually, and I had a kind of an interesting, varied career. But basically, at about the age 32, I guess, I decided to kind of plug back into my art that I had done, as a youth, and I don't know, just started getting back into it, I guess. But ever since then, I've worked. I don't know. I kind of like using both sides of my brain, I guess. I like really technical things. I mean, the engineering side of me, there's definitely that, but I also like the creative side. So I don't like just to do engineering. I like to do design as well as engineering. So I don't know. I guess like I said, I use both sides of my brain in that respect. But so recently, anyways, I've kind of migrated from mechanical engineering to the structural field, and so and that always has seemed more interesting to me, anyways, because I like doing architectural type work, design work, houses, anything having to do with design of structures. I really enjoy doing. So that kind of has been my focus the last year and a half, is starting my own business with my own structural engineering firm.
And also then tell us a little bit, I apologize for not being able to pronounce it, and all of the pixeLobby people know me in names, but tell me about the tribe you are related to and descendant of.
Yeah, so my mom, or I guess it goes way back, but my grandmother is from the Gitchan tribe. They're from Kispiox in Hazelton, British Columbia. And I grew up actually in Terrace, British Columbia, a town about 50 miles west of that, of our ancestral village, I guess you could call it. But yeah, so we're in that small tribe is really part of a larger group called the Shimshan, and they basically are throughout the whole northwest coast, kind of next door neighbors to the Haida, who are a fairly famous tribe, and the Tlinkits from Alaska. So between the Tlingit, the Shimshan, and the Haida, I think the majority of your large totem poles and that sort of northwest coast art, the northern style of that northwest coast art has emerged from that area. So yeah, that's the culture. That's what I grew up in. But I also my dad's from the States. I mean, that's how I ended up down here, and so I'm actually dual citizen, Canadian and U.S. And so that's how I'm in both worlds, I guess.
Absolutely. Ed, do you have anything to ask there?
Yeah, I kind of really devoured your site in the last couple of nights to try to make myself a little bit more knowledgeable about you and your work. So I do have quite a few questions, actually. I'll try to weed through the crappy ones and get to the important ones. Cindy indicated that you use AutoCAD. I mean, and looking at your art, it seems like it would be designed for Illustrator or with Illustrator. And I'm wondering, I'm sure there's other artists doing similar tribal work in your area that you do, and I'm wondering if the use of AutoCAD differentiates you from the others? Is that a fairly unique thing?
Yeah, I would say most artists that are doing like vectored artwork, and that's what this is.
Mhm.
It's strictly it deals with vectors. I mean, it's not a painterly style of work. It's very exact lines, exact forms that are created. But most of your artists you'll see that are using the computer at all, they usually, the big thing is Illustrator, right? I mean, that's the main tool that everybody uses for that sort of thing. The reason why I use AutoCAD is simply because I'm familiar with AutoCAD, and I've used it for years, since, well, even before I was probably 17 or 18 is when I first started using it, or introduced to it at least. But I have used Illustrator, and I do use Illustrator occasionally in getting images processed ready for screen printers or something like that, where I need to, or art cards, where I want to combine different elements into one kind of package. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I have used Illustrator in the past, but I find I'm more comfortable with AutoCAD, and I also find that AutoCAD has a lot of tools for doing very exacting work. So in other words, if I want to measure something out, and I want to scale it exactly this, and then measure it out over here, I can throw dimensions on it, and and I put those on a separate layer, and I can turn them on and off whenever I want to, of course. So it allows me to have the precision that I need for this type of artwork. That's the bottom line, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to mention that I'm fascinated with that as well. First of all, your artwork then is probably accurate to a thousandth of an inch. It's something that us who work in Illustrator don't quite go to that degree, but I understand it with your background and what you're familiar with. I once had a gentleman I was involved with a soccer league, and he provided me a digital file of a map of the fields. And when I got the file, it was in Excel. And what he had done is he just stroked and outlined cells to create boxes. Now, he was an accountant, and that's what he knew. That's how he knew to do that. So I totally relate to it, but I am fascinated that you use CAD to create your artwork.
And you were saying how obviously you use both sides of your brain with the engineering and the artwork, but I see them, not that you don't, but I see them tied completely together with the precision of your artwork. And it reminds me, and I mentioned it in the first podcast that we did, that one of the critiques I had in art school when I thought I wanted to be a painter was that I was too thumb, forefinger, eyeball, because I had the precision thing going on, not to your extent by any means, but I can certainly relate to that. I had a question about the actual images and their meaning. You illustrate a lot of animals, and some of them are mythical, like this. What do you call it? Is it called a wasco? That's part killer whale and
wasco.
I just think that's it's really fascinating. I'm wondering if you know the origin of animals like this, or like, how does the mythology of a creature like that begin? Do you know anything about that?
Well, the wasco actually is one of the more interesting ones, because there actually has been a study, and I don't know the source right now, but there has been a study done that basically they think that there might be some sort of prehistoric origin to this myth. I mean, so it's more than a myth, perhaps. So, I mean, they don't have, for certain that they can say that, but some professor, I think at UBC or somebody, had done some study, and kind of, like some sort of plesiosaurus or something. They may have still been existing during, kind of the Ice Age times, and that may have, led to this myth being created. So I don't know. Sometimes I don't think we know, but I think sometimes there's more to these myths than maybe we think. So, but it's hard to say. I don't know. Yeah, Cindy wanted to say something about that.
So I get to be the guy that does the gal that does the research for Nathan. We have to trade microphones, but I get to do a lot of research for him. And what was really interesting about that particular Wasco is that we did a lot of studying, and a lot of the legends along the coast all had like a Wasco-like creature. His particular tribe calls it the Wasco, and it would have this. They would have these legends where it's a wolf and a whale that are combined into two, so that's why it would have the dorsal fin and it would have the tail that curls around a drum, and in that drum is another whale inside the tail.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you look into the research, it was really interesting because that was a creature that was similar, like a dinosaur type creature that was similar to the Loch Ness Monster per se, or some type of dinosaur in the age. And what it would do is it would take its tail and wrap it around a conch shell, and it would break it. So when you look at the art, you can see that it's kind of like a wolf, kind of like a whale, and the tail is wrapped around what's supposed to be like a conch shell that it cracks to eat. So it's interesting how the legends, there's meaning to the art and stuff, and we were able to trace it back and find some truth to it. So anyway, here's Nathan again.
So Nathan, I have a question for you.
Yep.
The art pieces you create, are they always based on tribal lore, or do you ever just pull thoughts out of your own head?
This is exactly what I was going to ask next.
Oh, okay.
If it's all based on traditional, or if you take your own creative liberties with it.
Well, right. So originally when I kind of started the artwork, like, well, let's put it this way. So a little history. So in 2006, that's kind of when I started really getting back into the artwork and started making prints and getting more serious about it, I guess. But so as kind of getting back into it, you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start with the basics. So I went back to the basics. I mean, and the typical things to draw are wolves, eagles, bears, that sort of thing. And I haven't taken too many liberties, but yeah, I mean, you can you can do whatever you want with the artwork, and I've seen some really interesting pieces, and I actually have a few ideas for some let's just say non-traditional ideas, and I one of them I've been rolling around my head for a while, but I haven't actually made it up yet. But yeah, you can take the basically the methods and the form, what they call the form lines, and I've actually seen a really cool piece that was done by one for a political message, and it was a front end loader drawn with this style of artwork. So
Wow.
you can virtually make anything you want, I suppose. Right. But the thing to note is that's the stuff that sells in the galleries and what people expect and what people want are typically the more traditional artwork. So that's you're gonna naturally want to focus on that first.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of the galleries, it looks like your work is available through a boatload of them in your area, and I've noticed some even overseas. And I was just curious, how do you go about marketing to those operations?
Well, to be honest, I haven't marketed as much lately as I probably ought to, but you just you email people, get on the phone. You just have to start making connections and hounding people, I guess, really, to be honest. That's it's just like anything else. You've got to try to sell yourself, and once you've been around for a while, then people. Some of these galleries, they keep coming back because if they're selling your product, then the product sells itself. You know what I mean? So then I don't have to worry about it as much. But you just get out there and get on the phone and start calling people. Really, that's the start.
Mm-hmm. The old-fashioned way.
Yeah. So Nathan, I have a question. First of all, our audience that is watching, in the background behind Cindy and Nathan is some of Nathan's work back there, so you can see it, as well as we'll have links to go to his website and where he's selling some of his work, and you can see a lot of Nathan's work. Nathan, what kind of media do you print out to? You know, is this what we call in the industry giclée prints?
No, these are not giclées. So the stuff that's sitting behind me is those are serigraphs or screen printed.
Got it.
Right. But I do I've done some, like when I actually sold some kind of what I call mini prints at Pike Place Market in Seattle for a while there, and that was just a couple years, or well, 3 years back, I guess now. But those, though, I basically were giclée, where I did digital, versions of some of my original designs. But they're not. I don't know. They're kind of a watered down version, I guess. I mean, they still look great, but some people, well, at least for this kind of artwork where you're talking vector stuff, they tend to like the silkscreen prints better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is, but that just seems to be the thing.
And have you experimented with different substrates on that screen printing? Metal, let's say.
Well, no, I've mostly stayed with heavy papers. I can't remember off the top of my head what I use. Let's see, it's Arches, I think, is the type of paper I use a lot of. But I've used a black one. As you can see, I have a black print here, and that's kind of been a favorite of mine.
See, now you couldn't do that as a giclée unless, well, you couldn't go on top of black like that.
Right. Yeah. So there's limitations with the media, right? So basically, and I really like the gold copper on black, and so that's the direction. It actually was just an experiment, but it turned out I had a lot of people that liked it. So
yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of silk screening.
Mm-hmm. Ed, you got any more in that list?
You stole a couple of my questions.
Sorry.
I'm mad at you.
My method is winging it on the fly.
Yeah, that's great. I do have a question. It kind of goes off of the native artwork and more towards your career changes. I mean, you started working at a large corporation, IBM, and then you went into owning your own hosting business. Then you sold that.
Right.
And you're focusing on your own art. And I mean, so many people feel like stuck in a job and afraid to make a change and follow their dreams. And it's tough to give up that paycheck, right? And to pick up roots and move to a new place like you did, and while you're starting a family too. I mean, that ain't easy. I'm just wondering if you have any kind of advice or inspiration to give anybody that might be looking to go off on their own, or even a guy like my age that's maybe considering a second career or something along those lines.
Yeah. So, are you guys kind of breaking up, Cindy? Oh. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's good.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, if you look at my resume, like I said, I've had a very varied career. I haven't stayed, working at one company too long, and to be honest with you, I don't actually like working for other people, and the reason being isn't that I don't like necessarily working. I like working, but I find that I'm my most creative when I'm able to be creative, right? And when you work for another individual, or you work for especially big corporations, I find you become one of their drones basically, and it depends, of course, on what company you're with and the details, I guess. But I'm an entrepreneur. I like to do my own thing, and so I worked for IBM for a while there basically as an intern, and it was a good thing I did that. I like that, but the hosting business came along, and I had this idea one day, actually, just out of the blue, and I threw it by one of my buddies I grew up with in Canada. He's a computer scientist, and we kind of ran with it, and just who knew it would actually turn into anything, and we did that for 7 years. But I had a great time doing it, and even though it was completely out of my engineering field, and people say, oh well, you kind of dropped out of your field of expertise. The actuality is the experience I gained programming, because I did a lot of programming during that period with Perl for web-based programming. So that actually has really come into play recently for me, because I used my programming combined with my engineering to create these online calculators and websites, and those are actually yet another source of income for me now. So so these different skills you pick up, I don't think you can ever stop learning too much. I really think take every advantage you can to learn new skills. So, but I love running my own business. I mean, and you're right, that paycheck of a guaranteed income is hard to give up, especially when you got more kids and there's more financial responsibilities. So sometimes we struggle a little bit, but I don't know. I think in the end, I have more to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
At least
now,
I
Ed,
feel that way. I don't know about Stevie.
Now, Ed, you've done that in your life, correct?
Yeah, probably around the same age I went on my own.
And I've done that in my life. And my recommendation would be learn how to get creative with Top Ramen. But it's for very same reasons. Nathan, I totally agree that it's difficult to work with somebody, especially when you've been in positions where you've been very deeply involved with making decisions, and then all of a sudden, you're not necessarily in that position so much anymore of making the main decision. It's hard to do that, and you go out on your own. It's you who gets motivated every day. It's you who gets creative.
Right.
And first of all, we tend to work harder. We work harder now than when we worked for somebody getting that paycheck.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I work a lot harder when I'm doing my own business.
Mm-hmm.
But for me too, it's more than just making the decisions. I like to have control of my intellectual property of whatever I create. So when I create this artwork, I own that artwork. Nobody else. And even after I die, I still own that artwork. That artwork still belongs to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I was the creator of that artwork. But what can you say about working for company XYZ making this widget? Who cares? You know what I mean? That's the thing. So for me, that kind of ownership of what I create, to me, that's very important.
But you've also
I like to.
You've also created a legacy for your family, something to hand down. A lot of the great artists, their families have taken over being in charge of. I'm thinking of Edward Weston, and now it's grandson Kim Weston, and people have taken over those responsibilities and ownership and permissions and authority to family.
Right. Yep.
Okay, Ed.
There's my other butt.
Did I leave you anything?
Yes, I have one. Kind of changing gears again and going to your construction engineering. So you basically create plans for homes or sheds or outbuildings or whatever, and sell those plans and a list of materials and to whoever's interested in buying those particular plans, correct? I mean,
yeah,
you're not involved in the construction.
I have some of that on my website, and to be honest, there really isn't that much up there as far as that content goes. I think I have maybe 3, maybe 4 plans at the moment, but honestly, with my new business with the structural engineering, I've been doing the bread and butter recently has been, of course, taking plans that are homeowners or designers have done and doing the engineering, getting them figured out for them basically so they can build them. So that's not actually as creative a process as doing different designs. So I don't enjoy that as much, but I do enjoy creating the tools that are used to automate that process. So I've spent a lot of time creating these tools, Excel spreadsheets, actual web-based tools, and you'll notice in my resource section of my website that I have a whole list now of different tools that you can just download for free, a lot of them, and use. And especially some of my maps with design criteria maps, and I mean some of the stuff's probably a little too technical for you guys, but I'm kind of throwing a bunch of stuff out there. But yeah,
considering how hard it was to get this podcast going, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to say, but so there's a lot that I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to with the whole engineering thing, I'm still kind of feeling that one out right now, because I really only started with the structural engineering, I would say honestly, about the last 2, maybe 3 years. So I'm still, that one's it's still evolving.
Because what I was curious about,
yeah,
in that area is if you're selling these plans to people from different states. I know that California, the codes are just ridiculous here, and they vary from state to state, and
right.
There's a way of getting around that. You can't just, in my mind, I don't know how you can just sell a set of plans and have it be the code in every state and have it universally complied of the codes in Florida and California and New Jersey, whatever. And I was just wondering if there was a way around that, or that's not even an issue.
Well, it is an issue actually. So typically, you can design a set of plans, and you can make it so that it's compliant within about probably 90% of the U.S. about the lower 48. But there's always going to be certain areas where you have high wind, high snow loads. California, high seismic loads that are beyond, reasonable numbers, in my opinion. But they're California, right? So what happens is in those areas, you're going to have an engineer's review of that plan set, and that's actually what I do most of my time is spent. Like for instance, here in Ocean Shores, where I do a lot of work, we have high winds. The seismic is high too, but the winds usually are the governing aspect of the design. So I end up taking a plan set created by another designer or another architect, and then I have to analyze the whole structure, figure out, okay, let's look at the way he sized everything, his headers, his beams, his posts, etc. And then I take that and I come back to him. I say, okay, well, here's what I found out. Here's the corrections you need to make so that this is all going to hold together, right? So it ends up being what it just depends on the jurisdiction. Every county, every city has their own building code, and that building code is based loosely off of the International Building Code or the International Residential Code. So every county or every city will vary a little bit, and so a lot of these plans that I draw up, yeah, they'll probably work in about 90% of the jurisdictions, but they won't work in every one. Mm-hmm. And certain areas they'll have to be engineered.
Right.
So it's just a fact of life with that sort of thing.
Ed, Nathan, I had a second-story deck built onto my home, mm-hmm. and I did have to have a structural engineer go through and calculate loads and things. By the time they were done, I could park my 3-ton Hummer on top of it. It was
in a tornado,
and that's California for you. There, it was pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
So we've talked about your prints. What we haven't talked about is that you do like art cards, and you have some apparel and some other products, including what I really enjoyed was seeing the canoes you were carving.
Yeah, I just experimenting with stuff. I mean, I do a lot of the two-dimensional work, right? And printmaking is kind of the main thing, the bread and butter, I guess. But I like to just see, experiment a little bit and see what will work. And Sometimes I've probably spent way too much money experimenting because some of that gets kind of expensive. But you know, and the canoe carving. Actually, you know, I never figured that'd do much for me, anyways. But I like carving wood, so that was.
It's a beautiful art. You enjoy it. I could assume so, and I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, and in fact, I took some of my engineering, what do you call it, expertise, I guess, and I wrote in SolidWorks. I created a three-dimensional model, and you actually can see a picture of it on my website somewhere. But I took that actual model and handed it off to a machinist and gave him a couple blocks of cedar, and I actually had him CNC machine out the canoe, roughed it out, right? And then I took it, and I'm like, okay, now I got this canoe here all carved out. So I did the finishing touches on it. You know, I'm like, hey, this is a 21st century. You know, this isn't. This is the white man's canoe. You know, but you know, I don't feel like constrained to necessarily to the traditional ways of doing things. I figure, hey, we can blend, you know, modern art with modern engineering. Why not?
Sure.
Anyway,
that's kind of a great lead into something I've been thinking about for quite some time, even as we started this interview. Have you ever thought or would like to try doing some 3D printing of your artwork?
You did it again.
That's good, Ed. It sounds we're on the right track.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, what do you mean exactly with 3D printing?
Well, you know how they have these printers that, you know, work on the XY axis going back and forth, and they lay down kind of a plastic, and they build the polymer, and they build up layers. And I hope this isn't too demeaning. This is just off the top of my head, but you know, I could see a coaster.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of 3D printing I was referring to.
Oh, I don't know. It might work. I've never thought about it too much. Generally, I've always thought of the artwork as a carving more than a building up. So you're carving out the figure, but yeah, I guess you could approach it from
that's an interesting juxtaposition.
Versus an additive process instead of a subtractive process. Yeah.
I just say that again. Perhaps, you know, if you're selling, and as an artist, we need to market ourselves and sell things like, again, T-shirts with your wonderful artwork on it. But why not, you know, with these 3D printers, an iPhone case with your artwork on it as well, and that's where the 3D printers would come into play.
Yeah. I could see that.
Because you certainly have the files for it.
Oh yeah. And I've converted them all into digital files. I mean, it's just they're ready to go basically. You know, just need a. And the nice thing with the vector format, you know, you scale it up and scale it down. You can put it on anything you want. You know,
you do 3D billboards.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know. So it's. Oh yeah. So this Wasco here, I don't know if you guys can see it.
We can see it. Yeah.
I actually did a different version of that, a slightly more elongated version, and the real reason why I drew that Wasco was because I had a customer that wanted the design for the sides of his boat, a big.
Oh sure.
It was a big, well, not a yacht, but a large speedboat, or I don't know what you would call it exactly. It was a big, fairly good-sized boat, but he wanted to put, you know, a vinyl sticker basically on the sides.
Cut vinyl, sure.
Yeah, cut vinyl, exactly. So, and he did. So, but then I had actually did two designs, and he didn't like this one as well, but I like this one better. So I turned this one into a print because I wanted to do something with it. Yeah.
So what is typically? Do you do limited runs and cut it off at a, you know, there's 1,000 of these and that's it, or there's 100?
Yeah. So all of these you're looking at here, these are all limited edition prints. So most of them are, what are they? Are they like 150? I think I did on most of them. Yeah, and some of them, the Wasco and the Hummingbird, they're completely sold out. You know, there's none left except what you see here. But
and of course you don't want to make more because that devalues
Right,
the ones
right.
that
So
are out there.
I only yeah, that's it. They're done. Yeah, I've kind of been in the gray area a little bit. I've taken some of the designs and I've did a different color variation on it and then threw it out there just to see if people would be interested. But I typically don't do that too much. I just take the design, do a first initial run, and that's about it.
Well, I find your work very fascinating. I have enjoyed it from the first time I saw it. I think it was shortly after I think it was online I met Cindy that she was showing me some of the work you had done, and I thought it was brilliant, just brilliant.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
So
well, I need to get more done. That's for sure.
well, hopefully, it's all part of this. We love promoting our artists. We love exposing our audience to different styles, different types of art, different work. Again, it's the Pixel Lobby. It's not the Photoshop lobby or the Illustrator lobby.
Right.
So it's all about different kind of art, and hopefully we're going to drive some traffic, to your website, looking in and at some of the wonderful stuff that you create and have done, and there's going to be more demand, so you're going to have to get to work.
Well, I might have to, yeah. By the way, I not everything's on my website, but I have I have different concepts I've drawn up in my, and typically what I'll do is I'll sketch up by hand kind of a rough sketch, and some of these sketches are actually pretty finished products, but I like to just sketch it out by hand first, and then once I have it, about 90% there, I'll then take it into AutoCAD and basically have to retrace the whole design back out, and then I'll refine it, right? So I'll look at it, and yeah, I mean I might add, I might actually, and sometimes a lot of times I do different versions of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you notice in these different wascos and killer whales and whatnot, those inner ovoids or inner circles, as people say, you have these different elements. So those you can interchange and mix and match and do whatever. So sometimes I'll have 5, 6 different versions of the design until I finally hit upon the right combination, right? Because sometimes it's kind of a magical process in a way, because you might draw a design and it just doesn't go. It doesn't look good. And then next day you might draw a design and it looks good. It's just like, well, yeah, it's like sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to it. And so that's why, kind of like with Photoshop, or I watch Cindy do her work. She'll take like a whole ton of pictures, right, when she's out taking a photo shoot.
In the water.
Right, exactly. Getting wet, and then she has the opportunity to go through them and find just that perfect shot. You know what I mean? Because sometimes she'll catch somebody's expression just the right way. But that's kind of the way it is with these designs. Sometimes is I'll have different versions of them, and then I'll sit there and look at them and try to figure out which one I like best. So, but the computer though allows you to manipulate the images and version it really quickly and easily, right? So you can do 20 different versions of the same figure, really, with all sorts of different elements until you hit on the right combination.
Now, do you print it out and live with it for a little while and see? Does it work?
Yeah, exactly. I do that a lot, actually. In fact, I prefer to do that over just look on the computer. So I'll print out a hard copy of it, these different versions, and I'll just throw them all on the table and look at them and mull over them, and then and then leave it for a couple of days, and then come back and all of a sudden when I come back 2 days later, it's like, oh, that now I know what's wrong with it or something. I don't know. It's weird that way. You got to just kind of play with the images a lot.
What's very interesting is us. Cindy's trying to sneak in. What's up?
Oh, hey, Cindy.
What's crazy with Nathan and I is that with his art and with my art, we both throw it off each other. So there'll be times where he'll be mulling over and he'll be like, "Hey, Cindy, come here," and I have opinions and what I like up on my walls, and then I notice when I'm doing the art too that his opinion really holds a lot of value too, because he sees something that I might not see. So we will bounce off often. I'll be like, especially when we're doing pictures of the kids and stuff, and I will get all the kids up there, and I'll be like, well, do you like the expression of this, or what about the shadowing of that? And it's the same with his art. He'll be like, Cindy, does it look too boxy, or what about this color combination? Do you think that goes well? And we'll just discuss it back and forth, and it's really great because we've both got that artsy thing, and now that our kids are getting that way, I'm sure they're going to be opinionated on it as well and stuff. But anyway, I'll give you back to Nathan. Sorry.
And I just want to make a comment, and Ed, you can tell me if this is like this in your home, but I've had discussions with Cindy that that's not my wife. I show my wife something, she looks at it and goes, that's nice. And that's about the input I'll get one way or the other. So she's not really the choice. What I have found is now my daughter's 24. My daughter is very creative, and she's the one who I can really bounce that feedback off of. Ed, your wife, or do you have somebody to do that as well?
Yeah, I think my wife and I have a very similar situation as Cindy and Nathan. Her writing, I end up being one of her editors. She's got several, and she values my opinion as far as that goes. And then also, when I do my artwork, I always ask her, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I kind of don't like this. I don't like that. And she says, you're right, that's lousy, but maybe you should try this. She's super helpful, and we really feed off each other.
That's good. That's great to have that feedback. And what I think is interesting too is here we have, myself, Cindy, Nathan, Ed, yourself. We have different styles, different kind of artwork that we do, yet we have this common ground of how we approach things, how we self-reflect on our work, how we put stuff forward. As you said, Ed, as I'm asking a question, it's like, oh, that was mine.
Right.
And it's just that we have very similar styles, even though our work is not similar in.
Yeah, but our interests can be, and it can be very varied.
So
go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you to take it.
Well, I was just going to say I think too, but with the process of creating, creative work, whether it doesn't, I don't think it matters whether it's art, whether it's literature, whether it's designs for structures. There's always that, people when they look at an artist, they just kind of think, this guy just comes along, draws this thing, and well, boom, it's there, and that's
That'd
not.
Nice.
In the real life, that's not always the way. That's not the way it works typically. At least not for me. I mean, I sit there and some of these designs, I sat there and refined it and thought about it and versioned it a few times and just kind of mulled it over. Maybe that's just the way I do things like this, but the same goes for designing like sheds and structures. I really it's an iterative process, and it takes, you sit there and you refine the product, the end product, till you get it where you're pretty happy with it.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that's common. I think it's common amongst any of the creative process. Anybody that's making creative works. It's just like these musicians, right? They sit there and they bring it into the lab and they I don't know, they run it through all sorts of machines and do all sorts of stuff to it
Those musicians are crazy.
Well, but they're dubbing different channels in and until they get the right sound, right? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, because I was watching actually, and I'm actually I like music a lot, and my brother and I really like Def Leppard, so I watched a documentary on it, and I was like, yeah, these guys, they're not just. They don't just go into the studio and knock it out in one shot, you know what I mean, and it's done. No, they go in and they, multiple passes, and then after that they're mixing it for however, till they're blue in the face, and so I don't know. It's just it's a whole process to create really good art, I think.
It is,
Yeah.
And I know the process you talked about mulling over inversions.
Yeah.
I tend to do that in my head. In other words, I may not put a thing down on paper for 3 days, but I've gone over in my head, 20 different versions of something before I sit down.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, sometimes it magically comes, and other times it's like, yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that, by the way, is the problem with my artwork. It gets me frustrated because I really want to do something cool, and then I draw it, and it's a dud. You know what I mean? I'm just like, for some reason, the magic's just not there. So I try again, and then pretty soon I'll hit it. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. Sometimes it's hard to really nail what makes it, really something else, and what makes it just a dud.
And I think for me, and again, Nathan and Ed, you comment on this, I occasionally, I mean, it's referred to, I'm sure, Ed, with your wife, it's referred to as writer's block, that I'll get in a place where it's just not coming.
Yeah, for days.
Yeah.
And for me, I need to be creative, but I also do all my own production art, so I try not to waste any time. And if I can't come up with a good design for a project I need to do, there's always the production art on another project I can retouch or whatever. I'm always getting something done. That's the important thing. And I find retouching and stuff like that creative because I'm affecting a change on something anyway.
Right.
Okay. Well, Nathan and Cindy, is there anything you think we might have missed that needs to be told, the story of Nathan Wilkerson and his art?
Well, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Great.
I don't know.
Excellent. No, it's been really great, Nathan. Ed, do you have any last thoughts or questions for?
No, I'm good. Just thanks for sharing everything, Nathan, and it's been a pleasure talking to you and meeting you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, sitting down and talking with me.
We always see the back of you.
Yeah. I guess I'm usually sitting in the back, go out doing whatever it is I'm doing. Yeah. No, unfortunately, sitting in front of the computer is probably bad for your health, but I do more of that than I do anything else. So it's lately we're trying to get out and break away from just
playing a lot of tennis, huh?
A lot of tennis, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So
very good, very good. Well, I want to thank you as well, Nathan. Thank you very much. And again, to our audience listening, we'll have the show notes. We'll have links to the websites to follow up and take a look at more of Nathan's work if you're interested in purchasing. And I'm also sure, firing off Nathan an email if you have any other questions or looking for something in particular yourself. I'm sure he'd be open to that. Cindy, founder of pixeLobby, is she going to have a parting shot for us?
Hey.
Do you have anything to add towards the end here, Cindy?
No, I think, he covered pretty much all of it. I think there's just one thing that, a lot of people talk about the Northwest Coast native art, and the one thing I wanted to point out was that the Northwest native art is the Northwest Coast, however, it changes with each tribe. So, and that's really been fun, being married to Nathan, learning the difference from the very north, where it seems a little bit more boxy and stuff, and then you move on down south, and it gets more round and stuff, and then you will have different elements within the art. So each tribe, as you look at it, even though it's Northwest Coast art, you can recognize it as you get to know the art. By how it's designed. And Nathan even did a paper he did a study on ovoids, which is one of the shapes within his art, and he can identify certain art pieces by the shape of the ovoids to particular artists, that's Nathan. I mean, he does things like that and stuff, but he had it all figured out. But what's really cool is as you get to know the art, you can get to know which tribe it comes from too, or what region, which is really exciting to see too. it's just, for me, being married to him has been really exciting in that I get to learn a whole new culture. He's got his from the Gitchen tribe, and then there's mine, which is Guatemalan, and then we both are half-breeds. So we also have the white, and so we understand multicultural a lot. And implementing that in our own families and stuff. And so it's been fun having the cultural aspect and your button blankets and all that different fun stuff. And then there's, the art side of it, and then the technical side. And I think it's very well rounded, and it's been kind of a fun journey, and it still is. So yeah.
So
Great.
Is there any plans to have a Wilkerson totem pole in the front yard soon?
I've always wanted him to do a totem for our family, and in his tribe, there's meaning to each animal and creature, and then they also break it down, the tribes. You've got your tribe, and then you've got your houses that you're from, and you each. He's from the Luggy clan, which is the wolf. So his clan is the wolf clan within the tribe, and stuff. So they have a little bit of a story to each one, and it relates to them in a certain way, and including the button blankets. The button blankets, you'll see the characters and the artwork on the back of the button blankets, and it relates to each individual, and is a little bit sacred to each of them. And so when it comes to a totem pole, it has meaning. And so for Nathan and I, we were talking about it because I have the Guatemalan, like I said, and he has the native, but some people relate to animals, have like an affiliation to animals in a different way. Like I like owls, and I like hummingbirds and different things like that, where... Here, hold on one second.
Has he got a totem pole?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a little bit. I haven't done a lot with totem poles, but this here is a drawing I did working with the Quinault Indian Nation.
Right.
And it's basically a large totem pole, and it basically it dimensions it out and everything. I mean, so this is involving basically the artwork. Combined with the engineering and drafting, I suppose. But, yeah, so, I don't know. You're just mentioning totems. I knew I had this drawing floating around somewhere.
There's your first 3D project.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's not three-dimensional, it's not a model three-dimensional, but it's, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's at the point there on the Quinault Nation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, Ed, it's going to be the first totem pole done with a CNC cutter.
Well, actually, that's a really interesting concept, because I actually approached an artist working with the Skalalam tribe up there, and I said, let's see if we can't CNC one of these out. And he actually seriously considered it to rough the pole out. So we may still do something like that yet.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I want to thank you, Nathan, so much for it. I think I really enjoyed the fact this is a departure from our kind of typical Photoshop chat and our typical, as we did logos. This was getting into something really different and a different kind of art. And thank you so much. Ed, I want to thank you so much, and I apologize for stealing your questions. But
I'll let you slide.
I didn't have a list of them ahead of time, so I wasn't consciously trying to step on your toes. Cindy, I know you're back on. Okay, Cindy,
I'm back.
Thank you so much, for sharing your time, sharing your husband. Oh, that didn't sound right. Okay. And that should just about do it for the pixeLobby podcast. So this is number 5. Again, I want to remind you that we'll soon be on iTunes. We'll put a link. This show should come out, we're trying to go every other week, so we just put it on out Monday, so 2 weeks from this last Monday, we'll be putting this show out. Those of you the 2 viewers we see out there, you got a little preview of what's to come. And again, I want to thank you for listening, tuning in, subscribing to the show, and take a picture. It'll last longer.
Thanks. Awesome.